Hey guys, welcome back to Lux Unfiltered. We are going to keep on the momentum from last week and explore today's theme through reading some Reddit stories and reacting to them. And I think this week I'm really called to be talking about impulsivity and how that shows up for me as a person with ADHD, how that shows up in my life, especially around spending. I've definitely realized that I've been kind of ruminating over, should I say, that my impulsive spending sort of feels like a younger part of myself that's kind of panicking about being left behind as my life kind of evolves and levels up. I think that I've been thinking a lot about the way impulsivity and money kind of go hand in hand, and not necessarily in a you should budget your life kind of way, but in a way that, because lately I've really made a commitment to making myself feel better, both physically and mentally. I've got new meds. I have a new routine in terms of like food that I'm consuming and how I'm consuming it. And that is allowing me a lot more clarity around my long-term goals. And it makes me notice things like impulsive spending quite a bit more, because I'm slowly picking out all of the other things I used to be very impulsive and dopamine seeking around. I am obviously ADHD, so ADHD brains look for dopamine as a source of reward. That's why doom scrolling is so effective. It's why shopping is so expensive. Yes, that is. But why it's so effective. Why things that give you instant gratification can be incredibly effective to sort of soothe your mind. And I have realized as of late that a lot of the ways I was seeking dopamine is in kind of an avoidant way of dealing with other things. And now that I am dealing with the other things, I'm realizing that the last little part of me that is really struggling is that impulsive spender, because the action of just putting add to cart, purchase, and then receiving the little parcel, half the time I don't remember what I buy, one, which is ridiculous, right? I shouldn't have to be doing this for my mind to function, right? But I've realized that a lot of the time I will be looking for things that will make my brain feel like it's doing okay. So I'll be buying things and justify it, like, oh, it's for work, oh, it's for this, oh, it's for that. Okay, but like, do I need 2,000 stickers? No, I don't. That was an accident though. I thought I was buying 200. And again, do I need 200 stickers? No. But my goal was, in my mind, and the justification was, oh, but it's for work. I'm doing it because I'm going to be adding it to people's parcels and people's orders, and that is that little thing, right? But why? And that's really what I want to kind of explore with you guys, is the why behind it all, because I think it's not a coincidence that as all of the other parts of me are getting a bit quieter, a bit more subdued, a bit more focused and in their lane, that those little parts of me that are impulsive or are, tying back to this younger self are sort of freaking out a little bit. And I think that I watched this amazing TikTok that was very short, but that basically said that this girl or this woman felt like a lot of her triggers were because she was evolving into a person that her younger self thought would leave her behind. And I think that's what's going through with me. I think I'm going through the process of finally dealing with a lot of the things that I thought were just me, when actually they are impulsive traits and they are habits that I would have picked up as a trauma response. And they served me well for however long, and they no longer serve me. And I'm at that point now where I want to make sure that I am adopting things that will serve me. And I think what's difficult when it comes to money and impulsivity with ADHD is that you can't budget your way, especially with an ADHD mind. You can't budget your way out of things, because I've been doing that for over a decade. I've been living on my own since I was basically 18. I've been paying all my bills. I've never had like a place in my life where my bills weren't paid and I was sacrificing that. I think I just unfortunately have a bad relationship with money, because I'm very quick to be like, oh, just put it on a credit card, right? And like those bills are never not paid, but why do I need to use credit, right? And I can think of a few experiences where I was taught that I could always pay someone back, which then, creates that loop of like, oh, it's fine. I can just take it now and pay someone back later. And I think that is a failing on my education, which, whatever, it is what it is. And I'm now having to relearn things like that. And I'm very grateful that my habits have never been to my detriment, so to speak. Obviously they are to my detriment, because I am in debt, as most of us are with ADHD. However, it's never been to the point where I can't breathe, where I'm not paying my bills, where I'm not feeling safe, right? But what I'd like to be is debt free. And so that's kind of one of the things that I'm looking at this year. Actually, it's one of the many things I'm looking at this year, but I just think the video that I watched really triggered my, oh, maybe this is that part of me, right? I think a lot of the times when we work through shadow work and we have a look at all of our coping mechanisms and see what really serves us versus what we are just carrying along because we have to, because it's been that way forever. So why would we change it? I think it's interesting to make that distinction really between what is a lack of discipline versus what is impulsive and almost compulsive with an ADHD mind, right? A lot of the times I notice this, that when I am the most impulsive with spending, it's between the hours of like 2 and 4 in the morning, which like any normal person would be like, why the hell are you awake at that hour, right? And that's one of the reasons that I find myself doing this, is because I need to sleep, because I need that release, because I need to find a way to quiet my mind. And the way that I found to quiet my mind is just go add to cart. And so over the years, I have practiced things like adding to cart, but then closing the app. Now I've deleted any sort of credit card off my phone. I have removed my biggest culprits of spending. So those apps are off my phone. Actually, I tell a lie. They were off my phone from Christmas, and I've recently re-downloaded a lot of them. But I do plan on actioning and removing the culprits, the Sephoras of it all, the ASOS of it all, the Amazon I'm still holding on to. And I know it's not good, and I know it's not great, and I know that there are a lot of people that would probably be, the first to be like, boycott. And I agree. And if you can, do, but I have to be realistic with my world, and that for me, being able to buy just the thing I need and have it delivered is far more efficient for my spending tendencies than going to a shop and being presented with everything and leaving with 600 pounds less and a bunch of stuff that I didn't really need because it came in for a screwdriver. And now I've got a lamp, I've got plants, I've got a toy and a craft that I was like, ooh, I'll totally do this. And it's going to sit in my craft bin for the next 4 years until it inevitably dies a death, So I really want to try and make the distinction clear in my mind as well, to say that, impulsivity is not lack of discipline. Impulsivity is urgency that's rooted in fear or unmet reassurance, right? And I think for a lot of us, it is, how do I want to say this? For a lot of us, it is a soothing mechanism. It helps figure out next steps. It helps you feel like you've got your shit together. It helps you feel like you are doing this to be an aspirational version of yourself. And I think that's definitely one of my issues, is that I grew up in a world that was very, very fortunate and very privileged, but my parents acted as if we were broke. So they were very um, cautious with their money, very cautious with the fact that it could go away in any second and we had to save, 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 save. And what's funny is that save, 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 save has never been imparted on me, because I think, unfortunately, my brain saw that as punishment, because my reality was so different than the way money was being used. It felt like we had so much and everything was there. And obviously this is the naivety of youth, right? You see everything and you don't see the hard work that's gone into it. You don't see the fact that one of my parents grew up with nothing, and that made them, very worried about money. And I think, unfortunately, because of that, I sort of picked up on the lack and the scarcity mindset of it all, rather than realize, but we have everything. Like, we are abundant. And I think that's something that I work really, really hard on now as an adult, is to remind myself that abundance is everywhere. And obviously, again, this is incredibly privileged to be able to say, but that mindset of being grateful that you have a roof over your head and food and access to what you need, even if obviously there are access differences, being able to have that and be grateful for that is something that I implemented the minute I understood, right? But I think, unfortunately, the scarcity mindset of the way the rest of my family is, who are terribly afraid that everything and the wealth that they have will disappear, has created this hoarding mindset within me. And I think my grandparents were they were hoarders, because they grew up with nothing. They grew up during the Second World War, where nothing was there. My grandmother was German, grew up during the Nazi regime. Everything was sort of taken and like redistributed, like down to her, right? So like she was taken from her family and given to another family. And so there is a lot of these core wounds that are that still get activated around money and around financial success. And I think that because of the ADHD, this need to feel like I'll always have what I need is definitely prevalent, which then goes, oh, well, you need to buy this so that you have a spare. And I'm very bad with that. I always have more than enough because I'm worried that I will run out. And the problem with an ADHD mind is that you don't realize you've run out until it's far too late, and then it just throws everything off. And so I always have, like, for example, I'll have mayo in the fridge, but then I'll have mayo on the shelf that's waiting to the mayo in the fridge, even though I don't eat mayo that often. So I could just go, oh, well, the bottle's half empty or the almost empty, I'll just buy a new one. That just isn't how my brain works. And I just need the safety of having a replacement, which is silly, right? Because like, if you compound that with everything, why do I need to have two of everything, right? And I think it's just something that I'm trying to explore so that it doesn't hinder me as much anymore. Like, I'm in my mid-30s. I want to, create, I was about to say generational wealth, but I have no offspring, and I have no interest in doing that. But I want to create wealth for the people around me, and I need to be able to be better at that if I want to bring in those that I love, and to bring in the success. I need to be able to figure that out. And I think the younger part of me is just afraid that if I'll slow down, I'll lose momentum. If I don't get it right now, then I never will, or that if I grow up too much, there won't be any room for that little girl or that little kid who just needs to be seen, right? And I think a lot of my adulthood has been like overcorrection for the like scarcity mindset that I've been in, right? It's been like, oh, well, you have everything, but then I feel like I don't have enough. And so I'm accumulating all of these things because when I grew up, I was moving around so much that every few years, my whole life would be packed into like 4 or 5 boxes, and everything that didn't fit in those boxes, well, we had to give away. And I think that created this like attachment issue, I think, where I'm very good at just getting rid of stuff, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's just things that can be replaced. But on the flip side, that means I can be quite flippant with just buying what I need because it's like, oh, well, I don't have it here. I'll just get another one and then I'll have two. But the problem with the I'll just get another one is that I end up having six because rather than have that forward planning of like, I'll take this with me and I'll take that with me and I'll take this, well, I'll just get another one. But that's frivolous, right? It's this creation of a cycle that just that 10 pounds that I spent on a cable when I could have brought my own cable or borrowed a cable means that like I'm just stealing from myself and it becomes sabotage rather than a communication of needs, right? And I think what I'd like to do today when we're going to look through the stories is I want to see kind of where those childhood wounds are, especially in myself. I think for me anyway, having nice things is kind of a proof of safety or proof that I'm doing okay. And it just kind of feels like when I have momentum and I'm going places and I'm doing things, it feels like surviving correctly. Whereas if I'm waiting, it feels like disappointment. It feels like I'm punishing myself. It feels like shrinking or settling or losing sparkle, which is silly, right? But if you think about it, this is a child's point of view that I'm trying to correct as an adult. And so I have to kind of kick that around and be like, okay, well, why are you feeling like this? And interrogating it. And I think that's where I am now is I'm trying to interrogate how I feel so that later on I can then be stopping myself in the midst of things. So I'll notice myself, for example, being online and being restless and being like, what am I trying to solve here? What is this purchase trying to solve? Oh, I want to smell good, but I have 60 perfumes. Why do you need a new one? Oh, but this one's almost out. No, it isn't. You've just used this much out of it, but it feels almost out. It feels urgent to me. And I'm trying to figure out how to calm that urgency and calm that little kid inside me that is freaking out. And I think it's difficult, I think, because those good decisions kind of have those weird hangovers where, yes, I'm making a responsible choice in not buying that thing or saving this instead or paying off that debt. I think what I've started doing now is that when I feel the impulse to spend money and I have that cash around, I will pay that amount onto a debt. Trust me, it doesn't feel good, doesn't feel great. It's responsible. It's what I should be doing, but it doesn't give me the same hit. So now I'm trying to see, okay, well, what are the long-term things that I can do instead of like getting that quick instant relief from the restlessness, from the feeling deprived, from the feeling almost panicky. And sometimes I become like suddenly obsessed with this thing that I didn't know existed 10 minutes ago. And I think it's grief, unfortunately, right? And that seems to be an overarching theme of a lot of the things that I'm going through is just like dealing with the grief and seeing it not as a failure, but as what it is. It is grief for the fantasy version of the life that I want that I probably don't have or won't have. It's grief for like an immediate dopamine hit. It's grief for the promises of like, this purchase will make everything okay when that's not true, right? It won't. It'll make you feel temporarily okay. And if you're anything like me, you're going to forget 10 minutes after you bought it. And then, ooh, it's kind of cool that you get like that instant dopamine hit when the parcel comes. But then what? Then it's just sat there. And do you use it often? Do you do that? Like, I became obsessed with like diamond painting because I did 2 little tiny ones, like they were this big. And I was like, this is the best thing ever. This is going to revolutionize my world. I'm going to be able to put my phone down and just dot these things. And then I got a kit for like 20 quid and it had like, I don't know, 10 or 8 things in there, but they're like big because I was like, oh, if I get a big one, then I'll want to do it and then it'll sit there forever and it'll be great. It's not been opened. I took it out. I saw how big it was. My brain went, that's too many things. No. And that was 6 months ago. And that thing is now in the craft cupboard. And maybe I'll get excited about it. Maybe I won't. But now I have this compound of I've spent money. I'm not going to use the thing. I'm not excited about it. And now there's shame. So what do we do to combat that and make ourselves feel better, right? Like, because this is kind of like the emotional epicenter of it all. Because I need to talk to that little kid that goes, yeah, I want to do this. And I need to talk about the urge without fighting it, but with saying things like, you're not being replaced. No one's erasing you. You're still allowed all of these beautiful things, but you can't have it cost your safety. And I think, unfortunately, that last part is what's difficult because I am so rigorous about having my bills paid and making sure everything's okay. But so that little kid is like, but we are safe, but we're fine. And I think that is something that I had, especially as a kid, which is like, you see everything around you and everything's fine. And I'm the one doing the work now, but it's still terrifying to have to tell myself, no, you can't have that. No, you can't do that. So it's difficult, right? Because I have a budget and all of my bills and everything, like I said, are paid. And then I have a separate account for fun money, which I use abundantly, but I also use it for work stuff because I'm like, oh, well, I can't take it from my like home stuff. So taking things from work, from my fun, and it just kind of convolutes things. So it's definitely something that I need to work on. But I'm doing that and I'm doing the work and I'm putting the steps in, which is why like I've started all the new medication and to help me eat, to help me sleep, to help me like stop having so much of this anxiety. And that has helped in the 2 months that I've been taking it kind of make me notice all of these kind of old coping mechanisms that just don't work anymore. And I think that's why they're so loud. I think that once you get to the point where you are on the precipice of sort of healing, that it's scary and everything gets so much louder because you're like, no, I can't, like, I got to do this, but you don't have to do this. You can have an intentional pot of play money, so that you can go out and play. You can delay those purchases. I think one of the things that I do best now is that I add to cart and then close the app. So I get the fun of scrolling and adding a bunch of shit to my cart. And then I'll go back in a few days and be like, well, do I actually want this? Do I actually need this? And I'll prune and I'll remove things. And then, okay, well, it feels better. And I'm putting things in place to try and mitigate the debt. So I've recently done a balance transfer on a credit card so that I have 0% interest on that balance for 36 months, which gives me a little bit of breathing room, which means that I can put more onto that without constantly being hit with credit card interest, right? And figuring out those kind of systems to help me grow and go through and get through these issues. I think one of the biggest things was clothes for me. And like, I don't leave the house. Why am I buying more clothes? So now what I'm kind of trying to do is figure out the outfits or the inspiration that I've seen on a clothing website and then going into my closet and being like, what can I do to make this mine or make this like that? Because I mean, I have most of the statement pieces that's on sale, right? Like I am but a goyle. So I think I don't need to upgrade these things. I can just learn how to style them differently or put them together differently. It's same with my home. Like I have so many things that I just needed to put together and make myself feel better about. But that took the mental clarity of allowing myself to not be in the shit. And I think that's what's difficult is people sort of get addicted to their own misery on top of all the other things because it becomes a core identity. And I think we talked about it last week where being in that cycle of feeling like a victim or feeling less than is like self-confirming rather than on the flip side being completely delusional about who you are. And I think that that delusion can be important, an important part of healing anyway, because it forces you to sort of take stock of what you do have and what you do and what you can do with what you have and getting creative with it. So yeah, I think it's a difficult thing that we're trying to do this week, this year. I'm just trying to get my shit together and you're going to be here hearing about it, I guess. Because my nervous system, I think, is finally getting into a bit of stabilization, which is kind of nice. But obviously, I need to check in with a lot of the things that I've been doing, which is like, okay, is this coping mechanism still needed? How do I validate that part of myself without harming my future self or harming my present self? Learning about it might feel like a regression, but it's not. It's about integration and allowing that to happen. So I want to read a few Reddit stories and we can get into how these people have dealt with things and see what they're doing, right? So let's see what Reddit stories we could do. These are a lot of people. I've opened up the r/shopping addiction, r/ADHD women, and r/CPTSD. It seems a lot of people that identify as women or present as women tend to have these kind of addictions, so to speak, because it's a behavioral addiction, definitely. It's that dopamine release, and it's the same kind of thing with substances where you get that immediate boost, that dopamine rush. So this first story is from r/shopping addiction, and it goes, healing my inner child is slowly hurting me. I want to stop impulsive buying. It's getting out of hand. It started 2 years ago when I began living alone, but over the past few months, it's gotten much worse. I feel like I have to buy something online every single day. Same. If I don't, I feel overwhelmingly sad. Let's talk about that afterwards. I'm constantly chasing the dopamine hit, but the high disappears quickly. Then I start searching for something else to buy. I really believe that this has something to do with my mental health. I've tried distracting myself to stop, but nothing has worked. I will keep doing it. I didn't grow up in a wealthy family, and as a kid, I developed a deep fear of scarcity. We were always saving and running short. Most of the things I wanted remained dreams. Whenever my friends had beautiful makeup or new gadgets, I would tell myself, don't desire that, you're not at the same level. And I knew, even back in high school, that I was the poorest among my group of friends. But I never let it show. I just kept reminding myself to stay simple because we weren't rich. So when I started earning and living alone, I poured everything into my supplies and the things that I owned. Even when I hadn't used up what I already had, I'd still buy more because I was afraid of running out, afraid of losing what I had. And now it's gotten excessive. I can't control it anymore. I've been buying expensive makeup, clothes, shoes, bags, so many things. And don't get me wrong, I'll always donate. I'll always give things away that I no longer use, and I'm not stingy. I don't want to be selfish, but I want to help myself understand that that's enough now. You're okay, and you can buy things again when you actually need them. But it's hard, and I don't know why. I feel like I have no self-control, and I don't want to be like this anymore. I know this feeling all too well. I think that this person also has that scarcity, and I by no means, again, was poor, but I went to a school with incredibly wealthy children. which then made me feel like I was poor in comparison, which again was not the case. Um, but when you see people snap their fingers and get new things, or you see the lack of consequences for actions. For example, when I was in high school, my iPod got stolen. I had an iPod Classic 80 gig, and it was the my prized possession. It had everything. I had everybody's discography on it. I was obsessed with it, and it got stolen. And the person who stole it had a cocaine addiction. So when you're that rich, that bored, that lonely, that your parents don't care about you, that you can develop a cocaine addiction because your parents aren't there to help you as a 15, 16-year-old, you do things like steal someone else's iPod to get a fix, right? And the consequences to that was a slap on the wrist for him, and they got me a new iPod. Like, they just replaced it. And it was like, okay, but also that new iPod doesn't have all my music on it. It doesn't have the films that I had on it. It didn't have everything. But for that person, they didn't give a shit. Like, it was like, oh, whatever. Just have a new iPod. And I think it sucks, right? Like, when you feel like you don't have enough, and like you have to constantly gather and keep. I understand this person so well when they were saying, you know, they they started living alone, and then they just gathered everything. And I think I did that as well when I left home, and I just wanted my home to have things. And I think because of the way my family was very much like, nothing could be seen, has to have clean everything, you can't have stuff laying around. And with an ADHD brain like mine, I need to see that I have the thing, because otherwise it disappears into the abyss and I don't know where it goes. And I can look for it all I want, but it's in a safe place, even safe from me. And I remember always forgetting that I had things, and then going through drawers and being like, oh my God, this is so cool. And I still go through that phase where, like, I'll put stuff away, completely forget I have it, and then discover it 5 years later. And it's such a frustrating thing, because I want to be able to have nice clean surfaces and have that aesthetic house, but that just doesn't work for me. What has worked for me is like baskets, right? So like themed baskets. So I have a basket for all my keys and the necessities before I go out. So like, I love to have a spritz of perfume before I go out, and I have my keys and gum, and that is in the little basket in front of my door, so that like all the things that I need are there. And I put my earpods on my keys so that I never am without them. Sometimes they're uncharged because they're always on my keys. But that's another story. I think that building systems around what you need and what you are is far more important than what the aesthetic life is. And sure, you can try to make your systems aesthetic, but your systems need to work for your brain. And unfortunately, a lot of people who have ADHD need to be able to understand where things are without having to use their memory, because a lot of us, we remember so many things, but none of them are useful when we need them. So what I've done is label everything. Like, I have little drawers, and in this drawer you have X, Y, and Z. And I have a craft drawer, and I have a tech drawer, and I have my keys and my like candles and all of these things that are organized in a way that suits my mind. The logic is for me. And I've even done that with my whole flat. I know I've talked a lot about this, where I've organized my spaces. So I do the living in one space. I do, and that includes sleeping, right? That is part of living. And then I have the get ready in one space. And then I have the work in one space. And then I have the shower. Obviously, everybody has a bathroom. And then the kitchen, which is the kitchen. And I think it's important to allow yourself to have those kinds of systems in place so that you do not feel like you're working against it, or that you just can't keep up, like you're setting yourself for failure, up for failure, and shame, rather than allowing yourself to just be different. Like if that like Marie Kondo system doesn't work for you, then don't do the Marie Kondo system, right? If you feel safe with two of everything, then have two of everything, but have one in a specific place and then the other in a different place, right? And I have that, for example, for scissors. I lose my scissors like there is no tomorrow. So what I do to combat that is I have 5 rooms, 5 scissors. The scissors never leave the room, right? Otherwise, they're lost into the ether and then I don't have scissors anymore. But that allows me, even if I have duplicates, to create a system where I know where things are no matter what, which then helps with the overspending, because what I used to do is just buy scissors willy-nilly and then I had 10 pairs of scissors when I only need 5. Do I need 5? Probably not. And that's a privilege to be able to have more. But allowing myself to do that freed myself from this like shame of not knowing where my things are. And I think that's what's important when it's not about self-control. What, especially going back to this Reddit story, this person knows it's about their mental health, knows that it's most likely something that they're trying to fix. They clearly have a fear of scarcity, which is a very deep wound and very difficult to heal, right? But it's about that talking yourself off this ledge and being like, why am I feeling like this? What about my existence am I trying to fix? What am I trying to avoid feeling by buying this? And that's a difficult thing to do, right? To constantly ask yourself these hard questions. And unfortunately, until you get comfortable being uncomfortable, it's going to keep repeating itself. And it's annoying because you don't want to be uncomfortable. You want to build yourself this cushy life and you want to surround yourself with all these pretty things. And I'm not saying don't surround yourself with pretty things because you have to be uncomfortable. What I'm saying is being uncomfortable with what you're feeling and not immediately fixing the problem by not really fixing the problem, but by giving your brain that dopamine hit. It is the exact same compulsive behavior as someone who is so miserable in their life will turn to a substance like alcohol, like drugs, to immediately feel that relief, right? It doesn't change their circumstances, and sometimes it makes it worse. And unfortunately, that's the thing with impulsive spending, is that it can make you worse. Like it can get you into thousands and thousands of debt. There's a story coming up where this person spends like 20 grand a month. Like, I could easily spend 20 grand a month if I wasn't keeping myself in check. Like, I can easily do that. I could do that in a day if I wanted to. Like, and that's what's terrifying, right? Is this the impulse of it all. The fact that it feels uncontrollable when maybe you're just your inner saboteur, right? One of the top comments on here says, I always remember something that RuPaul said, and I'm paraphrasing, but it goes along the lines of, you have to acknowledge and accept the hurt child that is in you, but you can't allow that child to make decisions for you. And that really stuck with me. Also, therapy can make a huge difference. It's hard and you have to work, but the results will be so worth it. And I am absolutely on board with that. Therapy is for everyone. If you think you don't need therapy, you need it the most. And I'm sorry, not sorry. Like, having to do that work, having to look at yourself in the mirror and look at the dark parts that you do not want to acknowledge is terrifying, and it's life's work, and it's important, and it is just worth it. The freedom I feel now compared to 10 years ago, and I'd been in therapy 10 years ago. I'd been in therapy for 10 years by then. And I thought I knew everything, right? But you get to these plateaus where you're like, oh, this is fine. I'm healed. No, you're not. You're at a plateau. You are self-aware. And I think the difference between self-awareness and healing is that self-awareness can be used and weaponized, because you can identify other people's patterns. And I think I was guilty of this, where you can identify the patterns and tell people what to do and what to change and whatever, but that makes you sound like an asshole. And like, I hold my hands up. I'm an asshole, right? Because I'm very good at pattern recognition, thank you, autism, and I can figure out people's core wounds very quickly. But that ain't my business to tell them. If they ask, I can, right? But it ain't my business. And I'm getting better at not doing that and not telling people what they should do. But my answer will always and forever be go to therapy. If you think you don't need therapy, you need it the most. Go to therapy. Should we do another one? I think it's, I like these stories. I like doing this. This is one from r/ADHD women, and it's called I Can't Stop Impulse Spending No Matter How Much I Try. Any tips on how to stop or at least manage the urge to keep buying more? Yeah, lots of tips for that. It's going to be fun. One of the things that actually helped my doctors recognize that I had ADHD was my impulse spending and compulsive shopping. When I'm bored or avoiding tasks, I immediately start online shopping, which has become easier to do now that I'm working from home. I even avoid going to a grocery store in person, especially like Target, because I will end up buying so much shit that I don't need and don't have expendable money for. Same. After starting medication and ADHD specific treatment, I have gotten better at budgeting and mapping out how much I can expect to come in and out of my bank account monthly. This helped for a bit, and I deleted all the shopping apps from my phone for about 2 weeks. I feel like I could have written this. I genuinely cannot stop myself, especially with clothing. I can never just purchase one thing. I have to get everything I like, and after I make the purchase online, I fill up my cart with more things that I want to keep looking at and obsessing over until my next paycheck. I don't even get to wear the clothes from one purchase before a new package comes in the mail. I need to get serious about saving money as my rent is majorly going up in July, and I have wants that are more important to my quality of life than clothing, like being financially stable enough to get a cat, comfortably afford to go on outings with my friends, and have nice furniture for my apartment, etc. I just feel so lost financially and entirely out of control. Has anyone else had similar struggles and overcome them, or at least found realistic ways to manage spending fixations on buying new clothes? I feel like no one around me understands how much of a problem this is for me. Edit. Y'all, thank you so much for all the amazing advice. Not only have I gotten so many great tips on how to manage and plan financially, but also so much support and kind words, which I really appreciate. This is my first post in the sub, and I just feel so understood. Y'all are great. Reading these comments make me feel like I'm at a sleepover with the girls, and we're sharing advice, so thank you. I love this. One of the top comments is, can you fill your online cart and wait 24 hours? I find that just browsing online and filling up the cart but not checking out really helps with my impulsive buying. Typically by the next morning, I've totally forgotten that I even wanted stuff. Yeah, see, this is something that I do a lot. I find that really easy to like window shop and be like, oh yeah, I'll just buy it. Like, I'll just put it in my cart. It gets trickier when it's like 3 a.m. and I just need to sleep, and it's like finding that itch, and I'm like, oh, if I just buy this, it'll make me sleep. Which is tricky, right? Another comment says, you may need to switch out coping mechanisms for a healthy coping strategy. Like someone who gets the urge to smoke a cigarette, they reach for gum. Or someone with the urge for sweets goes on a 20-minute walk. So choose something that might work as a substitute and start being very mindful about switching it. A habit takes 30 to 60 days to catch on, so be patient. If that doesn't work, maybe getting help for compulsive shopping, as it's a form of addiction. And that's true. I think that there are means to, again, therapy, and you can get into therapy and you can look at these things and you can try and figure out what it is that you are masking, that you're holding on to. This other person says, I definitely recommending the find new focus areas and develop more hobbies advice. And something else I'd personally add in is pay it in cash. There's quite a few studies now on the way our brains interpret spending money, and there's a good deal of science now proving that spending cash is much more painful for us than spending via a debit card or a credit card. If you Google the words pain of paying or pain of paying cash, you should get tons of articles that'll explain the way cash um, having to be physically handed over for the goods that we want hits the brain in different ways than cash or debit cards, credit or debit cards just don't. And here's a few articles to tie into. And what I'll do is I'll link those. What's it called? I'll link those in the blog post so you guys can have a little mooch of those articles as well. I think it's a great way transferring things into cash. I definitely have noticed that I pay for things in cash, like my nails or like services, and that doesn't feel impulsive to me because it's like, oh, well, I love having my nails done, so I'm going to pay for that in cash, and I'll find a way, if you know what I mean, to pay for that in cash. I think all of this to say is that a lot of the times our minds just want safety. They just want to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel like they're doing the right thing. And I think a lot of the times we give into that because it's easy, because figuring out why we do things is hard. Having those conversations is tricky. And I think a lot of the times we do those things because we're scared, right? That little kid inside of you is like, but do you still need me? Do you still want me? Do you still see me? I'm here. Why are you forgetting me? Why are you doing this to me? And I just want to hold that little kid and be like, hey, you're coming with me. We're doing this together. I'm holding you and we're going together. And I think that's a tricky thing to remember, right? Because it feels like I'm abandoning a part of myself. And I don't want to do that, right? I don't want to let go of that kid part of me, but I want to let go of the coping skills that she created because they don't serve me anymore, because I'm safe, because I'm held, because I've got me, right? I don't want to exile that part of me that wants these things. I want to teach her that waiting doesn't mean losing, that building something slowly doesn't mean that it'll be smaller, and that growing up doesn't mean leaving her behind. It just means taking her with me. And on that, I'll see you guys next week. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope it's given you some food for thought. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to have you sound off in the comments and let me know if you are enjoying the new format, are enjoying the new topics. I'm really enjoying doing this. I think it's fun. I think it's great. We'll probably do something a little bit less serious next week. Some more Am I the Assholes? I love doing those. But yeah, I felt like talking about the impulsivity and just where I'm at currently. So yeah, if you are in Liverpool this weekend, I'm at the market on Sunday in the Albert Dock. So I'm there from 11 to 4. Would love to see you. Get your CBD in, get your goodies in. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.